the new Mercurial Vapor 16 here any good? Or did Nike take things too far by introducing grip knit and kinda mess up the Mercurial DNA? Well, in today's video I'm gonna tell you what's good and also not so good about it to hopefully help you decide if you should buy a pair of these or the Superfly 10s or not. Because as always, I'm J-Mike and this is my review of the Mercurial Vapor 16 Elites. So, the new Vapor 16 here has been given a pretty big makeover from the 15, but is actually more of an evolution when Nike have used technologies that they already know will deliver. So, you get a refined Zoom Air unit in the sole and an upper made with grip knit and atom knit. And yeah, you probably heard at least one of those names before. Obviously, grip knit comes initially from Nike's Phantom GX boot, which is this upper that's a combination of individually coated yarns that make them really sticky, and then these uncoated high tenacity yarns that add a bit more structure, but also kind of balance out the grip in the upper. But the upper on the Mercurial here is not just a straight copy from the Phantom GX. Somehow Nike have managed to make it even thinner than what you find on the Phantom GX2. And then on the midfoot and heel you have atom knit, which is taken from Nike's Alpha Fly Super running shoe, which is basically a steamed and pressed fly knit material, meaning that it's still really soft, also pretty strong, but also really thin and very, very lightweight. And right off the bat when you put it on your foot, I think this is at least one of the two best fitting Mercurials I've ever worn, alongside the Vapor 13. And if we compare this to the Vapor Posit Plus upper, this upper has 3 layers instead of 5. And on your foot, you definitely feel that it's not only thinner, but also a lot softer. I mean, it's just that immediate sensation of this very sock-like, soft, pliable, and almost bendable feeling around the shape of your foot that you might know from the Phantom GX. And it's just, like side by side, the softness of this makes the Vapor 15 feel a little bit restrictive and, you know, like crammed in. And that's definitely not something I expected to say just a year ago. So very impressive, and it's just wildly comfortable, but still in a close and snug sensation. Honestly, absolutely wonderful fit. For me at least. Now, as for the fit and the shape of the boot itself, you do get a sculpted, snug-ish midfoot around this area, but I still had a little bit of extra room down here on the midfoot that I feel will accommodate pretty well for wider or flatter feet. And the same thing can be said for the heel actually. I have a relatively thin, narrow heel, but I would still say that the heel lock-in is relatively solid. There's a bit more foam than in the Vapor 15, meaning that the heel just hugs your foot a little bit tighter than in the 15, but still had a little bit of extra space around both sides of the heel. So for me, I could have done with it being ever so slightly tighter, but honestly, that's very depending on your foot shape. Now, the same thing can be said for the midfoot here. The upper doesn't have a ton of structure to it, meaning that the medial lateral stability will feel a little bit weaker than in the Vapor 15, but I'm gonna get back to that because we also need to talk about sizing. As always with Nike, I went through the size with my usual US 7, Europe 40, and the length was absolutely perfect, like super spot on, just like the previous Mercurial as well. And in general, I would say that the fit is relatively generally appealing. It's got a good ability to accommodate, and still you get that rather, I would say, personally sculpted give to the upper. It's tight, but nice. So grip knit is pretty great for the fit, but it actually also shines when it comes to the touch. It's got this wax-like spiderweb feeling stickiness to it that somehow feels ever so slightly dialed down compared to the Phantom GX, just a little bit. And it really just adds that extra something to the touch where you feel this, I would call it natural stickiness in both wet and dry conditions. And it's something that just helped me trust in the connection between the boot and the ball a bit more and just take my mind off of the touch and focus on other things. And it's super well balanced. And when you combine that with that close fit, you get a really thin and close and almost like amplified natural sensation. It's easy, but there's just that little something extra on top. I didn't find it to be overly sticky either, to the point where I had to adjust my touch to avoid slipping on it. And also you get this really low pointy toe box that's actually a bit lower than on the Vapor 15, making the Vapor 16 Elite feel very nimble as well. And all in all, I felt that it just invited me to take the ball and run with it, do something. It's a great feeling, natural, but extra cheese on top. And then there is the Outsole, where Nike have tuned their Zoom Air unit and also gone back to those iconic Mercurial chevron-shaped studs.
And I'll be honest, I'm really happy that they brought them back, the chevron studs, because to me, it's just a little bit more Mercurial, right? And what I like about the chevron studs is that they just feel super aggressive when you plant your foot and when you push off. And it just feels a bit more responsive when it comes to that speed sensation, right? Then you also have these 8 little fins under the forefoot that remind me of those on the 2015 Adi Zero, in the sense that they go in and they give you the feedback that they kind of engage well with the forefoot as you do the roll motion during push-off. It's not a game changer, but it feels nice. I like it. And then there's the airbag, which offers this slightly bouncy and almost like, I'm bouncing on the ground here, cushion sort of feedback when you push off. This little bit of like nice but squishy sensation. It's not as obvious as the F50 Plus in the sense that obviously there's no block under your foot and it's not as bouncy, but it feels a little bit more integrated, maybe also because the airbag is actually a part of the sole itself, acting as the strobel. So it's just, that's a little bit different, but you still feel that it's there. Then of course there's the stiffness of the outsole. It does feel a little bit stiffer than the Vapor 15, and the snapback is, I would say it's decent, but I also don't find it to be as responsive or powerful, you know, as the Ultras or the Alphas or the Furons or even the F50 Elites. And I know that it's probably to make it a little bit less hardcore and slightly more generally appealing, but I mean, it is a Mercurial. Would it have hurt you to make it a bit stiffer, Nike?
Which leads me to 4 annoying things that you also need to know about.
The first is, admittedly, it's a minor thing for me, but I got a little bit of stud pressure from this guy right here. And it's not a deal breaker, and I can definitely live with it because the rest of the boot is so good, but when I'm pushing off, I just get a bit of pressure centered right around here, you know, just off the edge of where the airbag is. And on a firmer pitch, you can feel it, so it might annoy you. I'm not mad, but it might annoy you, now you know. Oh, and maybe you've noticed that my boots look kind of dirty. That's because the white grip knit here is, it's kind of hard to clean. So this is what it looks like when it's brand spanking new. This is after 3 hours of use for this video on an FG pitch, and this is my test boot that I've had for 3 months. So if you want to buy it because you love a squeaky clean white boot, it's not gonna stay like that for long, unless you know some cleaning tip that I don't. Patina and all that, I guess. And I know it's weird, but somehow I'm just missing that innovation X factor, you know, that new, never seen before in a pair of football boots technology that just means that you need to try the Mercurial. Only the Mercurial can do this. And it doesn't make me love the boot any less, but it just feels like a, you know, a Mercurialized Phantom GX. And of course, when you have such a soft and pliable upper as this, there is a trade-off where, you know, the lockdown is just going to suffer a bit. Now, it's still pretty good, especially with a runner's loop, but if you are specifically looking for lockdown and prioritizing that, unlike the Vapor 15, I wouldn't say that the Vapor 16 is necessarily best in class anymore.
But even if the Mercurial is made of things that we already know, and as a result might look a bit unspectacular from a newness and innovation point of view, on foot, it is very spectacular and very good. At which point, newness doesn't really matter because it works.
I'll even go as far as saying that to me, this is easily the best Mercurial since the Vapor 13, and I think it's also definitely in my top 3 with the 13 and the 11 as the best Mercurial ever. I just really like it. It's definitely not flawless, but still, the fit is fantastic, and it offers that really nimble, confidence, dribbling invitation that I really like. And honestly, going back to the Vapor 50 now, which I've enjoyed a lot, it kind of feels like a downgrade compared to this. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section right down below. If you want the Vapor 16 Elite or the Superfly 10, you can buy that in the link to Unisport right over there. But of course, also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel with the notifications on before you go and buy a new pair of Mercs. And with those words, I'll be signing off. Here we go.